In the vast desert expanse of eastern Utah, where time seemed to fold in upon itself and red sandstone cliffs whispered secrets in the wind, Blind Frog Ranch stood as a stubborn enigma. The ranch had seen it all: vanished miners, buried Aztec gold, ancient petroglyphs, radiation spikes, and water that moved against gravity. But what arrived next came not from the depths of the earth, but from the skies above. It began with a blinding flash in the middle of the night. A roar shook the valley like a primal beast had awakened. Seismic sensors buried deep near the northern ridge buzzed to life, reporting a brief but violent tremor. Locals miles away claimed to see a blue-green streak tearing across the heavens. Some said it crashed directly into the canyon beyond the ranch's fenced perimeter. Duane Ollinger, the ranch's relentless owner and resident truth seeker, reviewed the footage from motion-triggered trail cameras. In frame after frame, a glowing arc descended, too fast and erratic to be a plane, too bright to be a drone. Whatever had entered the atmosphere that night, it had landed close. The mission was clear: find the impact site and uncover what secrets the sky had delivered. The team loaded up early the next morning. Heavy-duty trucks, metal detectors, radiation meters, and seismic sensors were prepared. They scoured topographical maps and used drone footage to triangulate the probable crash zone just beyond the canyon where strange readings had been taken months earlier. By midday, they reached an area where the ground showed several signs of disturbance. Trees bent slightly outward. Rocks were singed black at their edges. Soil was overturned in irregular patterns. The air, oddly, had a metallic tang, like ozone after a lightning strike. Then they saw it. A shallow crater, about 30 feet wide and 10 feet deep, was nestled in a clearing surrounded by fragmented shale. The epicenter was still warm to the touch, the earth glassy in spots. Buried partially beneath layers of disrupted sediment was a gleaming shard, blackened along the edges but shimmering like molten chrome under the sun. The Meteor. Cautiously, they retrieved the object, weighing nearly 70 pounds and humming faintly when placed near electronic equipment. Instruments nearby malfunctioned. Compasses spun uselessly. Cameras glitched. The thing pulsed as if alive. That night, back at the ranch lab, analysis began. The object wasn't composed of any singular element, but a dense weave of alloys, some known to Earth, others entirely unidentifiable. Embedded deep inside were perfectly circular voids, like chambers. No signs of combustion, no impact fractures. It was almost engineered. Theories erupted. Could it be a piece of an artificial satellite? A fragment of an alien craft? Or something older, predating known history, hurled through space, finally finding its mark here? More unsettling was the change in the animals on the ranch. Horses refused to approach the lab where the meteor shard was stored. Frogs, oddly numerous around the ranch, began to disappear. Motion sensors caught glimpses of flickering shapes darting through the trees. The ranch's dogs howled nightly, fixated on something no one could see. Days later, Duane's son Chad discovered strange symbols carved into a boulder near the crash site. Geologists confirmed the engravings were not recent. The stone was covered in lichen and moss, worn by centuries of wind and sand. The markings matched no known language, but bore eerie similarity to petroglyphs found in other anomalous regions of Utah and the Four Corners. The symbols seemed to form a map, or a warning further exploration led the team to a subterranean cavern, previously uncharted. Inside, the walls were lined with faintly glowing mineral veins, humming with low-frequency vibrations. The meteor fragment, when brought inside, resonated violently, almost as if it had found its rightful place. Deeper in the cavern was something no one could explain. A monolithic stone structure, vaguely conical and smooth as obsidian, stood in the darkness. Embedded in its base were countless small meteor fragments, lesser pieces, perhaps from the same body. But the shard the team had recovered seemed to fit perfectly into a central notch at the peak. When they placed it inside, the entire cavern lit up. Symbols on the walls ignited in cascading colors, blues, purples, and fiery orange. The floor rumbled. Dust rained from the ceiling, but nothing collapsed. Instead, the structure seemed to awaken. Pulses of light raced through the cavern walls, feeding into veins that led further underground. The ranch's instruments went wild. Radiation surged. Electromagnetic fields warped. Watches stopped. GPS failed. And for a full minute, the ranch above shimmered with an ethereal glow visible from miles away. Then silence. No explosion. No collapse. Just an overwhelming silence, as if the land itself were holding its breath. Back on the surface, the team tried to understand. Drones sent into the cavern now failed to transmit. Radiation levels were inexplicably gone. No traces of the spike remained. The meteor shard could no longer be extracted. It had fused with the monolith, as if it had always belonged there. In the following days, strange weather patterns developed over the ranch. Localized storms brewed without warning, then vanished. Small tremors were felt only within the ranch's property lines. Cameras caught flickers of humanoid shapes darting through dense foliage, appearing and vanishing between frames. Worse still, people began to have the same dream. Team members, local ranchers, even nearby townsfolk. Each described a vision of standing in a desert beneath 3 moons, surrounded by shadows with glowing eyes. In the dream, they heard a voice, not in words, but in feeling. A warning, a call, a memory. Duane, ever the skeptic turned believer, turned to ancient texts and tribal elders. Some believed the Sky Stone had returned to a sacred place, that thousands of years ago, something had come to Earth and left behind remnants, waiting to be reawakened. Others spoke of a sky traveler, cast out from the stars, its prison hidden in the earth until it could rejoin with its shattered form. Theories turned to paranoia. Could the meteor's arrival have triggered something dormant? Had the ranch always been a focal point, an ancient mark left by something from beyond? And what, if anything, was now coming back? Scientists who once dismissed Blind Frog Ranch as pseudoscience now demanded access. Government vehicles were spotted circling the area. Helicopters passed overhead in silent surveillance. Someone, or something new. Duane made the decision to seal the cavern. Concrete barriers, steel reinforcements, and encrypted locks were installed. Only the team would have access, and even they grew hesitant to enter. They feared they had stumbled not upon a treasure, but a beacon. 1 month later, seismic activity returned, but not from the original crater. Instead, a point 3 miles west began to tremble. Ground-penetrating radar revealed an object buried nearly 800 feet down, larger than a school bus and shaped with unnatural symmetry. The team had to ask themselves the question they were all thinking. Was the meteor a piece of something bigger? Had it come to find its twin, and had Blind Frog Ranch merely been the start of something far greater? The search continued, not just for gold or proof of the supernatural, but for understanding, for purpose, for the truth written not just in stone, but in stars. Whatever had marked the land that night from the sky had left more than a crater. A flash of brilliant teal tore across the heavens, leaving a scorched tail and a deep sonic boom that rattled the bones of the land below. The meteor descended like an omen, disappearing behind the jagged ridges to the north of the property. For a long moment, The world seemed to hold its breath. The next morning, the crew at Blind Frog Ranch awoke to reports of a blinding fireball seen for miles. The locals whispered of a falling star, while instruments on the property told another story. Seismic sensors had picked up a short, sharp impact. Radiation monitors had spiked overnight. Something had crashed into the Utah wilderness, and the ground knew it. Within hours, a search team was assembled. Drones buzzed overhead, feeding aerial footage into thermal scanners. The usual map of scrubland and stone was interrupted by a single glowing point. Heat radiating from a fresh impact zone tucked in a narrow canyon near the ranch's boundary. The terrain was hostile, steep, rocky, and slick with snowmold. Off-road vehicles could only go so far. The rest of the journey had to be made on foot. Hiking packs were loaded with meters, samples kits, and excavation tools. As the team moved deeper into the canyon, the air seemed charged, as if electricity clung to every gust of wind. By midday, they reached it. A bowl-shaped crater, about 25 feet across, yawned before them, blackened and smoldering at its center. The soil had turned glassy from the heat, and shards of scorched rock fanned out in a starburst pattern. In the middle lay a twisted chunk of metal, not natural, not rock, but something else. It pulsed. The object was roughly the size of a suitcase, charred at the edges but gleaming in places like molten silver. When the team approached, their equipment faltered. Compass needles spun. Radios cut out. One of the digital meters cracked and shut off altogether. Carefully, the team lifted the fragment using tongs and gloves. It was heavier than expected, far too dense for its size, and unnaturally cold to the touch. Beneath the soot, the metal bore strange grooves, not scratches, not damage. Deliberate patterns, like circuitry etched by ancient tools.